Hey everyone, thank you all again for joining us tonight. We are so excited to have you here as part of our Monday guest speaker series. My name is Shannon Sheehy. I am the manager of the careers team for CodeU. So I oversee our team of career coaches and tech employer specialists that help you all with the job hunt portion of CodeU once you get to the very end. So please reach out to me if I can help make any introductions for you to anyone on our team. Before we get to tonight's speaker, just a few announcements to share. So we do have an exciting slate of speakers coming up in coming weeks. That does include next week on March 18th, a talk on agile and product. On April 15th, we have a talk on neurodiversity and networking, breaking the awkward silence, and that's with Arissa Duval, who is a mentor of the program as well as a completer of the program. So she is very familiar with CodeU. And then Laura Williams on April 22nd is going to be giving a talk on refactoring techniques. I think we'll probably have some more sprinkled in there and more to announce in coming weeks. So keep an eye out in the announcements channel for those. Our careers team is also working on some more engaging events. So hopefully some of you all were able to attend last week's industry night. We had a really great time kind of mixing and mingling. We had some presentations. We had about a dozen employers there. It's an event that we're hoping to do again in the Louisville area for sure, and then hopefully branch out into our other regions. We're also always sharing events in the Tech Events channel and your regional channels in Slack. I know there was a really great event in Lexington last week. So if you're in Lexington, hopefully you were able to check that out. But again, just keep an eye out in Slack for announcements on those. Finally, if you're attending as part of your career readiness requirement, so that mostly applies to the August session folks, please remember to fill out the form in your Google Classroom. We extended that deadline a little bit, so be sure to fill it out by the end of the week so that you get credit for attending tonight. Just a couple housekeeping items. We do have quite a few people on the call, so please keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. There is a chat, a little chat icon in the bottom right that you should see. Feel free to use that for questions and comments, and we should have time for Q&A at the end. So tonight we are joined by Russ Broomell, who's going to present on AI tools and how to use, and maybe more importantly, not use them. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Russ. Thanks so much for being here with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. I'm a little embarrassed. I had prepared to talk about grilled cheese sandwich recipes for the next hour. I'll have to make up something on AI. No, I'm kidding. So I have been working with and on AI since before it and you probably have too. If you are writing code, you are absolutely using tools that are using AI. If you're working on stuff like that, and you have been for a while before they started to call them AI features. And I want to talk a little bit about the good and the bad and the ugly of AI. Let me see if I can at some point here share a screen with y'all. Some cool slides.
If you're not familiar with Google Meet, there's like a little rectangle with an arrow at the bottom. There we go. All the platforms are just different enough.
See if it'll show you.
That looks great.
All right. So you guys know AI, right? The very scary. It's actually a waxed figure of Terminator. It's not the real Terminator, but and there's been all kinds of AI hype, all kinds of AI scare tactics. But the reality is, like I said, everybody has been using AI for a long time, and hardly any of us destroyed by Terminator robots. Daniel Pink said this and quoted good sources, I guess. A text bot. AI won't replace people, but people who use AI replace people who don't. But also, we've seen some things like, oh, hey, we trained Chat GPT on some things, and it's smarter than MBA students and comes up with more creative ideas. And stuff like, oh, you don't actually need to write a book. We have a piece of code here that can write you the book in just a couple of minutes. And in fact, even draw you cover art. Well, okay. But what's the reality, right? I think President Obama said it really well. In the realm of artificial intelligence, we stand at a crossroads, teeming with potential yet fraught with peril. As we harness this formidable technology, we tread with utmost caution. A single oversight, a mere lapse in our ethical vigilance could not only derail our progress, but also compromise the very fabric of our society. Let us not forget. AI in its essence is a reflection of our values, our hopes, and our fears. It holds the mirror to our collective soul. Let us be guided not by the fleeting allure of innovation for innovation's sake, but by the unwavering commitment to yield this tool with wisdom, with empathy, and above all, with an unyielding respect for the dignity of all humanity. Except he didn't say that. ChatGPT said that's a wonderful quote. And that is, I think, maybe one of the core pieces that I want to talk about, how to use AI and how not to use AI. Because I think there are wonderful ways to use it in great productive ways. And also there are all kinds of inaccuracies and we get into using AI lazily. My presentation is mostly meme-based. So I am trying to make your evening a little bit brighter. If you have used AI tools in writing blog posts or creating photos or writing code or any of the 100 things that AI is pretty good at these days, you know this feeling. Like, I just, in 1 minute, did what it would have taken me an yeah. Right? That's the good news. That's just a wonderful feeling. And today, like I said, the tools are fantastic. They do great work. The next piece of good news is that they're getting cheaper and cheaper. They're included in a bunch of tools now, free or for the cost of the tool, whatever that is. I work for a company that we're actually running open source models on in-house hardware to do some work. And again, it's the cost of the electricity and the computer that you run it on. So it can be super affordable to do. And bippity boppity boo, give me a prompt. I will design your UI. I will write the app. I'll deploy the code for you. So there are some really wonderful things that you can do with using AI. Lots of stuff that it can save you money, time, effort. But there's a cautionary tale. So you have probably heard about lawyers who wrote legal briefs using some AI tool, and it totally made up the court citations. Right? You've probably heard about students who wrote theses and stuff and term papers and whatnot using AI and got caught and got busted for cheating and sometimes thrown out of school. Same thing from an engineering standpoint. There are security holes that exist because you write nice secure code with your AI, except you check it, just like the lawyers didn't check the legal citations and the students didn't double check the work that they were turning into their teacher. It's what I call lazy AI use. Because of that feeling of the baby on the beach, right? I saved an hour. Yes, I can get on to my next thing. Do not be Anakin. Let me say that. Take the time, double check the work. AI is great to generate frameworks. It's great to generate common functions. It's great to generate blog posts. It's great to generate marketing content and designing a website. But it does take a human touch to go back and make sure that you haven't left any holes, that you haven't made some mistakes, that it hasn't just left something out or hallucinated something in the middle that is not helpful. There's always the concern of copyrights. It is something that is yet to be litigated. There are various folks today over the use of images, over the use of text. You will read in the news in recent weeks a bunch of companies making deals with other companies about allowing their content to be scraped for AI. And the problem is that somewhere down the road, somebody is going to look for their copyrighted material and to get paid for it. Likewise, somebody is going to look for their intellectual property rights and want to get paid for it. And so whether it's a text writing engine or code writing engine or whatever you're using, there is a concern that what you're generating with it, if you're not applying your own original thought to it, may not be original, and you may end up owing somebody some licensing fees or some copyright fees or something else. I'm sure that it will get adjudicated over the next couple of years, and people will start to figure out what exactly that means. But there have already been, just like there have been text people suing to stop AI tools from reading text, are code people suing to stop AI from reading their code, even if they publish it in easy places like GitHub, even if they've copy and pasted bits of it on the Stack Exchange, things like that. So it's a little bit to think about. And the long and the short of it is when you build a business, you build a practice, you build your own habits around a set of AI tools. Psychological studies tell us that the more we automate stuff, the less we know how to do it. And we end up getting ourselves in trouble by doing the easy thing, which can be a real issue. So I think that the TLDR, and here I'll pause, take questions, and then maybe I'll share a story too. That AI is wonderful hype. The benefit of AI to businesses, to your careers, to your efficiency, your productivity over the next years and decades is going to be amazing. It continues to increase, especially around automating routine tasks. It would be great if 5 or 10 years from now, AI would allow us to automate a bunch of those routine tasks so we can do the hard creative work, coming up with new stuff and doing interesting things. But there is a potential for collision where AI and business can collide. And vigilance is required, right? Because you can leave holes, it can hallucinate. It can cause its own problems by trying to solve things more productively, more efficiently. And a second question there, and maybe we'll have some discussion and questions too, is that AI advancement might just outstrip our individual ability to adapt. So by increasing your skills with programs like CodeU, you're working against that. You're trying to say, hey, I need to improve my ability to adapt. I need to improve my skills. I need to work through this stuff to stay ahead of the curve. So I will at that point stop sharing. Like I said, I have a couple of stories to tell, but I wanted to give you guys a quick overview and then answer some questions.
Russ, I think the quote that you brought up that I've heard a couple times now, just in lots of conferences and talks about AI not necessarily taking jobs, but that people who do know how to use AI tools will be taking the jobs of people who don't. Do you have any advice for folks? So a lot of these folks are really just starting out. They might not know where to kind of learn or practice these skills. We're actually starting to build some AI coursework into our classes. We have a very limited time with students, so it's difficult to cover everything. But obviously, this is something that's really like in the forefront of people's minds right now.
Yeah, and I think there are two things there. Number one is, and then there's been some sort of math and study applied to it already. People estimate that you're increasing productivity by using AI tools, Microsoft Copilot, for example. Inside coding tools, there are AI assistants that can help you write code or secure code, or well, here's my data, write me an input form for this, rather than me having to go write it by hand, right? And you can increase your productivity between 30 and 1,000, depending on who you believe. I don't believe 1,000, but between 30% is not at all an unlikely number. It's probably you're going to double or triple your productivity over time. So that's one side, is just learning the AI systems that are out there, learning the AI stuff that can help you do it. When it comes to writing a resume, if you have job hunted recently and you have written 1,000 resumes, as I have in my past, and using AI now to say, hey, help me rewrite this thing in 5 minutes instead of an hour, right? That's good stuff. The other side too is that learning AI, learning to write AI code, learning to understand AI techniques, understanding machine language, understanding large language models, understanding the math that's behind creating that stuff, used to be the stuff of PhD classes. I have a friend of mine right now who is taking MIT online classes to learn machine language. He's learning Python and all the math around machine language, so that he can start writing that code. He's a marketing guy, and he can take those classes on, and he lives in Europe, and he can take MIT online classes to do it. And most of them are the free recorded MIT stuff, right? So you have this ability to actually, as you gain your skills, to learn more and dig in ways that we couldn't, frankly, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. The people who have invented the AI tools that we're using today spend a lot more time in school than anybody on this call needs to do to learn the same kind of stuff today. So I think, Joy, you had a question here. Using an AI tool gives you an answer to a question, but it does not give you the ability to develop yourself, to think critically, to solve future problems. As people who are new to coding, who may be told to depend on AI products, what are your thoughts? I agree with you 100%. Here's an interesting thing. If you read the statistics, about 33% of people think they are using tools that are driven by AI. I think it was the financial services industry, I think, that did this survey. And it's actually 77% of people are doing it. If you read the surveys, somewhere between 14 and 28% of people trust the answers they get from AI, and something over 70% of people don't edit, or just pass on the answers they get from AI as if they're true, right? They don't go back and check it or edit it. So you have that kind of disconnect, like AI being somebody else's problem, and really that's comes to, I think, the core of your question, Joshua, is the teach a man to fish, right? Versus giving a man a fish. If you're a new developer and you're told, hey, go use this tool, it's going to write the UI for you. You'll get it done, push a code, and go on to the next thing, and go. Great, except psychology tell us the more we do that, the less we are actually able to do it for ourselves. The example I heard was, if we had bought our shoes, pretty quickly, within a couple of months, we'd lose the ability to tie our shoes because we hadn't done it, right? Some of that stuff is like riding a bike, metaphorically and reality. You may, if you know how to do it today and you lose the ability to do it by using AI, you can reclaim that. You can go back and work on it again. But if you have been on a bike without having been on it in a number of years, it is not the most comfortable thing to do the first time through, right? So losing the ability to do something, or not learning it at all in the first place because you have a tool that supposedly does it right for you, is difficult. We had the same problem years ago. You still see it today happening. People going to Stack Overflow or different places, Googling a problem, and then just copying and pasting the code that resulted. That wasn't built for them. You have the same kind of problem sometimes happen in AI. As it gives you a code answer, but if you don't know enough to know how to read and see, is this thing doing exactly what I want it to do, it can be a problem. So yeah, I think you're right, Joshua. You want to sort of work that way. The good news is that when you're in the workplace and they say, hey, just use this tool, just go do it with it, and you do it for a living, you still have the ability to go back afterwards and do a project at home and work on stuff on the side and teach yourself those kind of skills, right? You have the ability to go back and look at stuff critically afterwards and say, okay, what did this tool do that I don't understand? Why don't I understand it? And go back and dig that out. And frankly, I would question an employer who is pushing you to push AI written code without really understanding what it does and what it says. Get yourself into trouble that way. The fairy godmother is wonderful when she does it right. She just doesn't know it. Sometimes the carriage turns back into a pumpkin. So that's the extent of my Cinderella references, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good metaphor or reference. I know even just with like different frameworks within tech, I know students can sometimes get frustrated because it's like, well, here's this really cool shortcut that I could have been taking this whole time. But if you don't know how to kind of build it, if you don't know the foundation, it's going to be really hard to keep learning on those skills and to actually grasp it. So I think there are a lot of parallels along with AI kind of, you can use it, but if you don't know what it's doing, you're not going to know if it's wrong. You're not going to know how to fix it. You're not going to know kind of how to catch some of those things that might be pretty obvious to someone that has been working with it for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does anybody have any other questions right now? I think one of my questions, Russ, I know just kind of in overseeing our careers team, I mean, we will definitely see machine learning roles or roles that kind of focus on AI, but a lot of times those are very senior level things that people are looking for. They're not really looking for kind of like the entry junior level talent that
Mhm.
a lot of folks are at in our level. So do you have any advice for people that are really interested in kind of pursuing that route and what they can kind of do in the meantime, or maybe some stepping stones to get to where they would want to go?
Yeah, actually, the one thing that people I think miss out on is that there are a couple of pathways into building with AI. Um, the To me, one of the more interesting pathways is mathematics. So data analytics and things like that, and working through uh, higher mathematics and understanding vector mathematics um, is a good way to start to head into building that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of roles at the base level which are not sexy, um, but that do lead down that path to those more sexy roles, if you will. All the GPTs of the world that you see today, and Google's Gemini and Microsoft's Copilot, all the things, um, they were all trained on large data sets. Somebody has to manage that data. Somebody has to collect that data. Um, Data has to then be sort of pre-processed, so that it can be fed into training. And a lot of that work is really more entry level kind of work. It's somebody who's got a good detail head on their shoulders and who can go and work with the data and can manage it and can learn that kind of stuff. So it's not, again, that's not the glamorous side of AI. When you start to think about things like self-driving cars and stuff like that, there's similarly a lot of video kind of data and things like that that get worked together. If you think about 3D modeling, right, a lot of that is being fed into AI today, and there's AI that does 3D modeling too. So any of those things that involve large data sets, complex data sets, complex mathematics, that kind of stuff, really helps you move down that path. The flip side is really a great way to get into it, I think, is thinking about writing algorithms. It's one of the things you learn when you start into code is you start to learn how to write a function that figures out how to do something, right? How do I write a set of commands that add 1 + 1, whatever they are. But starting to think about creatively think about algorithms and how do I take what I know about my customer, my product, my whatever's in my data, right? My image, my map, whatever the data set you're working with is. How do I take that and start to look at various parameters of it? Okay, I have a customer purchasing database, and I can see which products the customer has bought, and I can see how often they purchase, and I can see how far they had them shipped, and I have whatever. I have some. These are some parameters. I can start to gather up these kinds of information, and you can start to think about those as models, right? And that kind of thinking then leads you down that road that ends up in AI. Doesn't get you there quickly, but it does move down that road. So thinking about things in those terms, I know when I used to write code, I spent a whole bunch of time just writing CRUD code, right? Writing the user interface to create and edit stuff. And today, that stuff is all table stakes, right? A lot of the tools write that stuff for you. And so today you can spend a lot more time thinking about the model, thinking about how you're going to process the data, thinking about how you're going to manage the data. thinking about the math that's behind that. The great part, though, is that you're not a great math person. Computers are really good at math. So a lot of times you actually learn how to write the functions that do the math. You don't have to actually go do the math yourself. Let's see what else we have in the chat.
I know one thing that came up that we're always trying to work with students on is just you may have to take that entry or junior level role that's not exactly what you're looking for, but if you can kind of look at the longer term picture, it can really help. I know, especially for our folks. And so I'm actually working on some data input right now for our job. So if you'll bear with me real quick, I think we're at about 923 people who've gotten jobs out of the program, which is insane to me because we were at 40 when I on my first day years ago. So I think just seeing how people kind of start out their careers, and it may not be the job that you're exactly going for or the thing that you exactly want when you start out, but as long as it's something that's sending you down that learning path and helping you with your skills, you're in a much better spot than you were before. So I think that's excellent advice, and appreciate you kind of reiterating that, Russ.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's what I have friends of mine who work in all kinds of companies around town, and there are plenty of large sets in and around Louisville, in Kentucky, and if you are interested in working AI, finding jobs working on some of those large data sets, even if it's just managing and massaging the data and keeping it straight, is a great place to start along that road, because big data will all be harvested for AI, and people will learn, hey, we have all of this stuff in our databases. And I know people who are working on AI around the data that comes out of bourbon barrels, just as much as they're working on AI around healthcare data or other things. And it's not necessarily a matter of where, just that there's a bunch of data to work with, and then people say, oh, let's see what we can use to out here. Let's see. Joshua says, machine learning and other types of AI code requires a high level of mathematics understanding. That is reasonably correct, yes. As a person who does not have a traditional math background, do you have any suggestions? Yeah. So AI math is higher math, but it's different math. Let's talk about it that way. And it is it's vector mathematics, and it's statistics is really a lot of what it is. And so if you didn't come up to school and college with a whole lot of high-end mathematics, that's kind of okay. I don't know of a high school that teaches mathematics. And most of the statistics that I took in college wouldn't qualify me to start working on AI, because it was much more business focused. So it is very learnable. I said I have a friend of mine. He lives in Europe, and he is taking online classes through MIT's. They have a massive online learning session. MIT X, I think, is what they call it. And there are several. Berkeley has one. UC Berkeley has one, and several others. And the mathematics that's necessary to head down into machine learning AI is accessible there. Now, my friend who's doing it right now says it is hard work. He's in his 40s, and he's going back to school remotely. for this kind of stuff. So it is not like, oh, I'm going to go check it out and watch a 20-minute YouTube video and then I'm going to have it. It is real serious mathematics, but we live in an age where there are enough people who have taken the time and the tools and shared the stuff that, yeah, MIT and other universities are not the only source. So they're a great source. They're a wonderful source. They're fantastic stuff. Some of it is free. Most of it is free. Google has their own suite of classes, I understand now. So there's a bunch of resources. But it is definitely just this is one thing that I'm going to start learning, and I'm going to treat it like it's a master's degree. Right? It's not a I can pick it up and in 10 minutes I can get it done. It's I'm going to learn a piece, and then I'm going to learn a piece, and then I'm going to learn a piece, and I'm going to keep building on it. So the stuff you're doing in Code U is similar, right? I'm going to build a piece, and I'm going to build a piece, and I'm going to do a piece, and I'm going to learn it, and I'm going to keep going. It's the same way. It's the same way. You can definitely do it. It is not impossible. And like I said, there are a lot of tools to help you get there along the way. What else? What else can I tell y'all? Go read.
I was just wondering how you think about or talk about like bias in AI. Just like, because like you were talking about like writing the algorithms and statistics and thinking like, well, if I choose to weight page visits different than purchases, and like you decide that like this demographic has a higher weight than mine, you know, like we're producing like completely different results. And I was just wondering how like we talk about or think about like bias in AI and stuff.
I think there's really two ways to think about it. Number one, we're all biased, and all bias sucks. Bar none, right? So we want to be careful where there are risky biases, and we want to think real hard about what we're doing and why we're doing it. But quite often, the simple end result of AI is to predict reality, right? It's to predict, like if I went and did this on my own, I'd come up with that result, and I want AI to predict and come up around to the same result, right? And usually that is done by saying, hey, look, I have 100,000 records of people driving, and happen in those 100,000 cases, and now I want the AI to predict how to drive that car so that I get the best result out of the 100,000, right? But AI shouldn't do anything that didn't occur already in human reality, right? So sometimes bias, you can apply the wrong biases to try to get, I guess the nice word, optimized results, right? I want to get a better click-through ratio. I want to get a little better sales conversion. I want to get a little better consumer uptake of my product. And you can really introduce harmful, toxic biases to get that. So you should continue to ask yourself, okay, what's the base level? What's reality? What's healthy? And now what is my AI projecting can happen, and what's it doing? And is that a healthy? Did I help somebody lose weight, right? Or did I get them to eat more donuts? Which, am I doing the right kind of thing? And I think the more we ask ourselves those kind of questions, the better we're going to be. We're never going to be unbiased. We're human, right? You're not going to be able to do it. But you can ask yourself. And I think the question earlier Joshua asked about like what happens if my employer just says just use this tool and go. It's that same kind of thing. Like I want to double check. I want to ask, am I doing the right thing? Right. So I want to continue to do that, kind of regardless. Does that answer your question, Reed?
Yeah, thank you for that response.
No problem. Amanda says, in your experience, Are you seeing that employers are looking for employees with a degree in, for example, computer science, or another degree? I'm anxious about not having a degree. Yeah, no. I see a large number of employers who, on their job ads, say, I need a BS in computer engineering, computer science, whatever it is. And the reality is, when you talk to the employer, that's not necessary. I think more and more companies today are realizing that having a degree is not the answer. I graduated with a degree in business management. I really majored in college in beer. I could throw a party. I knew how to deal cards. I did not know how to manage a business when I graduated college. I had a great degree. Wonderful. I'm trying to convince my daughters to not do that as they go to college. And I think companies have come around to find out that, yeah, that's not how it goes. And so my encouragement would be, number one, Amanda, have confidence in yourself. You have great skills, and you can prove yourself an employment problem. But secondly, go out and spend time on LinkedIn. Recruiters will talk to you on LinkedIn. Whether you're direct messaging them or you're engaging in some of their posts or whatever, go out and talk to recruiters and say, hey, I have these kind of skills. I don't have a degree in computer science. What do you think? And what does your industry look like? And what do you see from candidates? And that kind of stuff. So it is with social media, it is completely possible to talk to people and just ask them. They're human just like you are. Right? So, let's see, Joshua. Am I seeing? You are seeing more and more articles that employers are moving away from more traditional education requirements. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing too, by the way, as we talk around this kind of issue, with AI tools, with AI able to do a lot of the work, and some people are using it to check and test. And I think you'll see this year more products that help people validate that the AI tools they use to create the code have actually done the right job, that kind of stuff. So you'll see AI checking AI, things like that. People have realized that the traditional educational requirements are not as critical as somebody being able to actually do the job, because try to use this without using names. I have a friend who said they hire a fair percentage of their staff from restaurants and from healthcare and all kinds of places that don't have on their resume the exact job skills they're looking for. In part because they think that those kinds of jobs help people understand customer needs more, and they can teach them some of the technical skills or some of the details if they don't have all of that stuff. So they're looking for people with that diverse background. And I will say there are some big companies that still hire like it's 1952 or something. And sooner or later, they'll get out of the room. So not everybody is like that, but more and more, I think people are.
Yeah, and I'd just add a lot of the appeal in starting Code Louisville so many years ago was that coding really is a job that you can do without a degree. I think, especially within tech, things are moving so quickly that the information that you learned at the beginning of a 4-year degree may not even be relevant by the time you graduate. We actually, a number of years ago, partnered with a local university because they saw that their computer science grads weren't really getting hired after graduation. They didn't really have much to show for the skills that they had. They were kind of missing that portfolio piece that we instill and work with you on for your capstone project. So like Russ said, I can't promise that a company isn't going to say, no, we need a degree for whatever reason they have. But I think we really have seen a lot of companies move away from that, which is promising.
Yeah. There's also a fair
Um,
number of companies around there that are sending people to school to go get their degree too, and paying for all or a portion of it. So it's not a bad thing.
Absolutely. Very nice perk. We had a question from Jeff that got, or I'm sorry, from Chris Jeffress that got a little buried. He was
Oh,
wondering if you can speak a little further on when not to use AI tools. So I know we talked about some use cases where if you don't actually understand what you're doing, that's not a great start. You want to make sure you have those foundations, but can you talk a little bit more to that?
yeah, there's a couple of cases to not use AI tools, but also to use them very, very cautiously. Um, when you are building something, I think Reed asked a little bit about it earlier too, right? When you're trying to build a routine that is weighting various factors and is trying to predict something or is trying to come up with some kind of answer, it is fairly easy today to try to give the AI coding tools an overview of what you want, and it'll spit out a bunch of code. And yeah, you can see what the code is kind of doing, and it's, you know, what the words mean and what the syntax means. But it's used some process to generate that algorithm that it then becomes kind of hard for you to understand why it's giving the answer it's giving, especially if it writes a big block of code for you. That's a time when you're worried about your bias, when you're worried about how you're predicting it, to use an AI tool with caution. A good way I've seen people use, especially code writing tools, is to go through the coding exercise, or the sort of pseudo coding exercise of, let me think through this problem and break it down into its component pieces, and then let me use the AI tool to write some of those pieces, and then I'm going to go back and assemble them together into that algorithm, into that logic, and whatever it is. Because then I force myself to understand what's there, and I don't just get to the middle of that routine and kind of go, that's hazy, but I'll skip over and I'll go on. I'm done. Yeah. Right. So that can be a good place. The other place, really, I think there's an ethical concern there too. So, for example, if you read ChatGPT's terms of service, if you claim what ChatGPT writes is human generated, you've broken their terms of service. And they're doing that, I'm sure, for legal reasons, but there's also an ethical reason there too. So I would caution you against using an AI tool and then claiming you did the work and saying, look at me and how great I am, and I just wrote 10,000 lines of code in a day. Hooray me. I'd be real honest and real open with people to say, hey, this is a straightforward UI. I've given it a data table structure and it's generating the web pages for me. I'm going to hit the button and go, and I'll double check it and make sure it looks good. But I'm using AI to do that. I'm going to go spend my time on writing that algorithm to calculate shipping and route the trucks the right way, whatever it might be. And so that is a place where I do caution people about sort of lazy AI uses, boosts productivity and not letting people know that you're doing it. And then you end up, unfortunately, it's going to happen in the most awkward way, right? Something's going to break, and somebody's going to go, oh, send it to Russ. He wrote that. He'll fix it. And I have no idea. I just hit the button and spit it out, and then I went to the beach, right? So that can be a dangerous place to use AI to. And then, by the way, that's in engineering. That's in writing text. That's in writing your resume. AI will hallucinate your resume if you're not careful. It'll make up stuff that you never did, which sounds interesting. And if you're a video game character, it's cool. But if you're trying to get a job, it's not always the best way to win points with your potential employer.
Yeah, I think kind of the use it with a grain of salt is kind of good advice at this point, and making sure that you're double checking things. And especially if it's something that this isn't just a fun hobby thing I'm doing, this is something I'm sending to a potential employer, or something that I'm using that I'm representing as my own. Definitely making sure that you're being very clear about it, and also checking the work, because it might just be something out of there.
Yep. And by the way, I think too, if you're doing things for job interviews, or you're doing things to show off as your work, and you say, hey, I use this and this and this tool to generate this. That can look good to a potential employer too. Can they, hey, this person knows how to use this tool, and as an example of the things they did with it, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing to be using the tools, because it's proving that you have an extra skill that employer can put to use too. So.
Absolutely. Well, we are getting close to 7 o'clock. Does anybody else have any other burning questions before we wrap up? Or Russ, do you have any kind of final thoughts for us?
I do have one final thought. I do not think that AI is going to take over the world, eliminate jobs. But I am always careful to say thank you to our robot overlords, just in case they take over and we have to. I don't think that AI is going to be the end of the world. I tend to believe that we as humans are pretty smart and come up with wonderful tools to save ourselves. Generally, at the last minute, we seem to like to do that at work. That's how we save our lives too. But I think this this cohort here, that's you guys are going to be part of that solution in the future, right? So what you all are learning and applying yourselves and getting into this kind of stuff, you will go in wiser and smarter than the folks who came before you, and you'll build on top of what they've built and get there. So I just want to encourage you guys to just keep going. You got this.
I think that's great advice. Well, thank you, Russ, so much again for joining us, and for everybody here for attending. I hope you all learned something new. I know I did. And I know, again, AI is a very hot topic right now. So I'm sure we'll have more speakers on it in coming weeks. But we thank you again, Russ, for attending. This was so great. If you all are looking for help on the job hunt, please remember to reach out to your technical career coach or tech employer specialist in Slack. You can always reach out to me and I can help make that intro. But just as a reminder, the career coaches are August Mapp and Jenny Terry. And then our tech employer specialists are Allie Ryan for the Louisville area, Monica Remy for Northern Kentucky, and then David York for Eastern Kentucky. And they are all very happy to help you with your job hunt. Again, we are making some really great progress. I am hopeful that we will cross the 1,000 milestone benchmark for placements by the end of this year. So I'm saying it as much as I can to put it out into the universe. So I'm hopeful that we will have some exciting news for you all at the end of the year, or close to the end of the year about that. Thank you all again for attending tonight. If you are here as part of your class, remember to fill out your Google form in your classroom. But otherwise, thank you all again and have a great night.